if we show up early and we stay the full time, you don't have to be early, just be on time. Be in your pew before the music starts. Getting into a space where you're prepared. Like, are you doing prayers beforehand? Or are you just, just like anything. It's like if you show up, that you got the ACT, you're about to take a hard test, and you show up, you're hungover, you're running late, you didn't eat breakfast, and you show up, because we're already fasting.
How'd you know I took the ACTs?
And then you show up and you were running late.
Yeah.
And how is your performance going to be? It's like, but, this shouldn't be performance-based, but this should be grace-based.
I started taking cold showers again.
Oh, no. Here we go. You starting Exodus 90 or what?
I'm not, even though they just reached out to us. They're doing the push because Lent's coming up.
Yeah.
But I've been trying to make time for fitness, like make time for health.
Yeah.
It's so easy between working at the church, being a dad, life responsibilities. That's the first thing that always goes for me is my personal health. And so I'm like, no, I got to make time for this because if I want to be the best that I can be at church for my family, I got to take care of myself. Yeah. It's not selfish. That's what I feel like. I go to the gym and I feel guilty that,
you should be doing something
else. I should be doing something else. I should be at home with the kids. I should be helping the wife. There's another email to answer. There's another person to call. There's, whatever it is. But so I started doing, started regimented, back in the gym, feels great. Watching what I'm eating, feels great. Brought in the cold shower, so consistently for the last 3 weeks.
Been doing it for 3 weeks?
Oh yeah, I've been going
every day.
Not every day, about 4 days a week.
And what's the length of how long you're staying?
I'm like 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the coldest I can get the water to go before it shuts off. You got that knob. Coldest I can get it to go before it shuts off. I mean, the whole house hears me.
I bet.
No shame.
I bet.
But
well, it's supposed to be. The health benefits are supposed to be.
I love it, dude.
It's supposed to be awesome for, brown fat and, just obviously waking you up. But it's supposed to, I also heard it said the main thing, if you want to lose fat, it's one of the best things to do because the way that your body temperature, core temperature has to change so much, you're burning so much what's calories? Calories it's a unit of heat. Mm-hmm. So it's measuring heat. So when it makes sense that your body's so cold, it has to raise its core body temperature to get up. So you're going to burn all the calories. That's why Michael Phelps, when he was always swimming in the pool, it was so cold, he'd have to eat 10,000 calories a day just to not lose weight. Because that's how much his body was burning, not from only swimming, for being in the cold water for so long that his body was burning so much because it had to raise his temperature. So that's some of the health stuff. But it's all the rage.
That's a benefit. I like it for the immune. It's supposed to boost your immune system, especially as we get into the cold months.
Yeah.
But just you get like a dopamine kick. You get on a high. When you get out of the shower.
Doing hard things.
Yeah, life is good. And doing the hard thing, like to be able to say like, I did it. I don't want to do it. It sucks. I put it off.
Yeah.
I listen to music. I fidget around. It's like, but
that's not my thing. Yeah, no,
I'll jump in and do it.
I avoided the Exodus 90 just because I didn't want to do the cold showers.
Have you done cold showers?
I did it for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but not 5 minutes. What I was doing was turning the shower on, and my bathroom's upstairs, so it takes a little bit longer for it to warm up. I'm like, all right, so I'm going to jump in as soon as I turn on the water, and then I'll just wait until it turns warm.
Sure.
So then I have that, it's going to be warm soon kind of a way to get me through it, but it's probably like a minute or something like that. But
yeah,
I've since stopped. No, I probably should though.
See, but because I know you do hard things.
Yes.
That's what I like about it the most. I like that I'm doing things that I'm introducing suffering.
Yes.
I'm doing difficult things I don't want to do.
Yeah.
And there's a sense of like, I'm not just living comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm pushing myself.
Yeah.
I did it. And then you get on with your day.
And I think you're training yourself for when the actual hard stuff does come, that you're training yourself in how to deal with stress responses, how to deal with adversity, how to deal with something that's hard. Because what happens is when the hard things happen to us, we are basically our habits. Because when something bad happens, it's like instinct. It's like Fulton Sheen says, crisis doesn't, prove character, it reveals it. Mm-hmm. It's like when everything else is stripped away, the only thing that's left is at the core of who you are, who your habits, what kind of person you are when no one's looking, or when there's a crisis. It's like, okay, well, there's a fire. Are you the one running away or are you running into the building?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you had to have those kind of trainings. That's why cops and firemen, they have tons of training to prepare themselves for that, because naturally our bodies, our biological systems want to help us survive. So everything in us is like, run. It's like, no, you got to train, no, run the other way. And the same with our spiritual life. It's like, I could be doing other things that maybe seem more important, but no, I have to train myself to fast today, or to go without, or to, sit in silence where it feels like nothing's getting done, but, mountains are being moved in the spiritual world. So
earlier this year, I read James Clear's Atomic Habits.
Oh, okay.
And it's one of those things where it's like, I knew that, but he states it in such a way that it brings clarity to it. It's so important for us to form habits, to be intentional in the habits that we want to form, or else if we just go through life on cruise, then we're going to default to habits that we don't necessarily want to acquire, which then shape our character, shape the way we conduct ourselves. And so to be intentional in habits, what he points out is just 1% changes that you have to make. And that's what develops habits, because it's that 1% over time that begins to form the way you think and the way you act.
Yeah.
The way you deal with stress, the way you respond to others, the way you respond to to the thoughts within yourself even. And so small things like doing a cold shower, learning how to fast, starting incrementally, I'm going to just make this one change and I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to do it enough times that I'm going to adapt to it. I'm going to add another 1% change, small thing.
Yeah. Well, people don't realize, 1%, it doesn't sound like it's a big deal. But when you look at it like a ship on the ocean, if you move like 1 degree,
well, it's like compound interest, right?
Exactly.
You start with $1, but over time, you begin to reap the benefits of it, because as you exercise it, it begins to add on itself.
Yes. Right? Yeah, and doing hard things allows you to do harder things after that. It's like you have to first do the easy things. Well, what's the saying that, if you want to do something that's impossible, first start with the things that are possible, and then do those well. And then it's like, you have to first do those things first. It's like with prayer. If you want to eventually get to a point where you're going to pray all the time, you have to pray a specific time. You got to set this up. But the call that they're calling us to, St. Paul in Thessalonians, pray without ceasing all the time. Okay, well, I'm not there yet, maybe, where I can pray, with my thoughts and in my breathing, and all day long I'm praying all the time. Okay, but can you pray when you first get up? Can you pray at lunchtime? That the church is, the genius of Catholicism is, well, we have the liturgy of the hours. Okay, we got breakfast prayer, we got afternoon prayer, we got evening prayer, we got night prayer, we got all these different prayers, because we live in the world. We live with hours. So it's like, if you want to eventually build up to being like a cloistered monk or nun where you're praying all day, well, first start with, can you pray 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, and then you build up. And that's what hard things do. Yeah. Start with the 5 minutes. Don't say, well, I can't pray all day. Okay, probably not. But can you pray 5 minutes? Maybe you can't do a cold plunge for a half hour, but can you do a cold shower for 30 seconds? And then it's a minute, then it's 5 minutes. Then it's like helping that resilience help us to grow and to get bigger, to get better. And especially, it's the same thing with our spiritual lives. Our physical bodies and our physical muscles and our spiritual muscles, they're pretty similar how we train them.
Yeah. I'm looking at that wall behind you and I'm thinking, a brick doesn't make a wall.
No.
But you start adding them up and stacking them up and you join them together, you get something that's solid and strong. Yeah. And that's what we're meant to be. We're meant to build ourselves up. And you do that one brick at a time, one habit at a time, one action at a time, intentionally thought out in order to build the character that you want to have. That pray without ceasing thing, it's something that we're all called to embody in our own ways. You don't have to strive to be a cloistered monk or a nun, or right? That some of us are called to that, but we're all called to have lives that are offerings to God. I think that's what St. Paul is trying to get at when he wants us to pray unceasingly. Is your whole life.
Offer your body as a
offer it up as a sacrifice
living
to the Lord,
sacrifice, yeah. Which makes sense. I mean, obviously there's, not everyone's meant to be married. Not everyone's meant to be a priest.
Yeah, just to clarify that, though, the living sacrifice is you're giving God glory in all things that you do. All things that you do are meant to be directed, meant to point towards God, right? Meant to glorify God. They're meant to be virtuous acts. They're meant to be good, true, and beautiful acts that you perform. Do we fall short of that? Yeah, but do you try unceasingly? That's also important.
Yeah, and
I love Padre Pio's line, pray, hope, and don't worry.
Yeah.
Right? Pray, hope that I'm moving in the direction and I'm aligning my will with the will of the Father. And then don't worry if you fall short, because if you're continuing to get back on the horse, then eventually you're going to be aligned. And that's why we have things like purgatory, even in the afterlife, right? Where this alignment, it continues to happen.
And if you fall short, that's God's will. I mean, that's more of the maturity of growing in our faith, is that, everything's where it's supposed to be.
What do you mean by that?
It's like
if you fall short, it's God will. Clarify that.
It's like, well, yeah, all things happen in this world for those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. So even you not winning, you fell short. You didn't win the race. You didn't get the scholarship. You didn't get those things, but that was meant to be. At the end of the day, where we're at right now is
I thought you meant in the spiritual life.
Yeah. No,
you fall short in the spiritual life.
You fall short in the spiritual life. Yeah. You get up and go to confession.
Yeah, he doesn't will that.
Okay. Yeah, doesn't will that. No, you get up and go to confession. But we're going to have all these disappointments and all these different things in our life by doing, even if you do the work and do the hard stuff, you're still going to, fall short. I mean, you're not going to win all the time. Everything's not always going to go your way. Even if you do the work, even if you fast, even if you sacrifice, even if you studied all night for the test. I mean, they're still going to have things, not everything's going to go your way. So it's just like, when you do, I love this serenity prayer. It's that's the hardest part about this faith journey, that grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's the hard part. It's like, when am I supposed to do something? When am I not supposed to do something? And, how do I know if I'm doing it when I'm supposed to do it? It's like, well, that's where prayer comes in. That's where the relationship with God comes in. Are we asking God, hey, am I supposed to be doing this? Or should I do that? Or should I not do this? Especially when it comes to hard things, because those are usually hard things, are usually tough decisions or tough choices, or they could be.
That's what I love about written prayers.
Yeah.
Like, thanks be to God. I've had an active spiritual life with highs and lows for years now. So I'm comfortable in prayer. But sometimes words don't come to you.
Yeah.
Right. St. Paul even tells us that you almost have to groan, and it's the Spirit that speaks through you.
Yeah.
Written prayers, though, if you find a prayer that resonates with you, that carries you through those times when, Lord, I want to pray, I lift up my spirit to you. The words aren't coming to you. I go to the Jesus prayer. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner.
Yeah.
That's like my go-to when I can't pray, like when I don't have the words to pray, but I want to align myself. I want to center myself in God. I want to offer myself to God.
Yeah.
That's the prayer that comes to me. So for some people, it's the serenity prayer.
I mean, serenity prayer is
some people,
the
Our Father,
the
the
AA prayer of people who in the 12-step program and stuff like that, but it's used for just daily life. I mean,
Sure.
I really use it. My go-to is the Jesus prayer, but I also really love the Anima Christi, especially after Mass. That's just
after receive communion.
Yeah, after receive communion. That's a great one. But I mean, today when we're filming this is the feast day of St. John of the Cross. We had talked our last episode a little bit about St. John of the Cross, and I was thinking today a little bit about, and I did a short video about him, that he was called the doctor of detachment. And that's why I started thinking a lot about today, was that how much of, especially as Americans, our lives we're so attached to so many different things. I know my cell phone, it's like I can't go too long without my cell phone, or just different, comfort things that we like, or whatever it is that, his point was that we need to detach ourselves of the worldly things if we're going to attach ourselves to God. That if God emptied himself out, how can we not expect ourselves to empty ourselves out to make room for God to fill us up?
Yeah.
And that's what so much of this time of year is, that we're filling ourselves up with stuff or material stuff instead of silence, solitude, prayer, letting go of a lot of these stresses and all these things in the holiday, and trying to make more room for God to so St. John the Cross is one of those mystics and those saints that really makes us think about how we're approaching the spiritual life, for sure.
And him and saints like him, especially in the Carmelite tradition, right? The Carmelites are really rich in this. Not to say that it doesn't exist elsewhere, but the message of self-detachment, of emptying, where we talked about the purgative way last time.
Yeah.
But this message of detaching from those things that we either cling to or cling to us in the world is so relevant in the Western world, especially when we have an abundance. I mean, people like to talk about the 1%.
Yeah.
But the statistics are, if you live in the United States, you're the 1%.
You are
globally.
the 1%, yeah.
So it's like we have a lot more than anyone has ever had. in history. So it's really important for us to keep in mind that as we, and it's not bad that we have these things, but it's all about how we use these things, what our stance toward our things are. Because do we let them become the thing that weighs us down? Are we the rich man who it's easier for a camel to pass through an eye of a needle? Or do we have to gradually cleanse ourselves of these things,
Or we build an extra storage sheds to put more stuff in to tear it down and do it all over again.
Oh, dude, they're building like more storage units here in town. I'm like, that's the last thing we need. Yeah. Where's the Chick-fil-A?
Yeah. You got to go a little bit farther down, a couple towns over to get your...
But self-detachment is a really important thing.
Yeah, and I
think we don't talk about it 1% at a time.
And we don't talk about it much.
We don't, but we should. Yeah. I'm glad we are. We didn't talk about.
Yeah, no. Well, I just thought about it because that's where I go for mass in the mornings. Is they're discalced Carmelites, which that's who St. John of the Cross helped start it with St. Teresa of Jesus, which means shoeless. So all the fathers that live there, they all wear sandals. Like they can wear socks and stuff like that, but they all wear sandals. They don't wear shoes.
And what does that signify?
That like even in the winter. Like they're wearing sandals. Yeah. It's just, more of like, they're like, they have one room. They live a life of poverty and their life is, liturgical. It's spent on spending time in prayer and brotherhood and praying with other people. And, it's just and
it's an intentional way for them to introduce discomfort into their lives.
Yeah, it's funny because one of my old parish priests, he's Polish. He's good friends with them, but he's a regular parish diocesan priest. Yeah. And when he left our parish, he got moved to a Polish, and they were trying to recruit him to come to the monastery. And he's like, I got too much stuff. It's just that it wasn't his, not every priest is called to be, a Franciscan or to give up all their stuff. They have cars and they have lives and it's okay. But, how are we using those things? But not everybody is called to that way of life, but some people are. And we should look at those people, they're so happy. It's like the Carmelite fathers, I go in there, they're smiling, they're happy. They don't have much, and they're just so full of joy. And all the people we think should be happy are the people who have all the stuff. And when we watch the news or scroll Twitter or whatever, you see all the people who have the most problems are getting divorced or on drugs, or these people in Hollywood who seem like they should be happy. They got they're movie stars. They have all the stuff. They got the nice house and they got all the stuff. And you think, oh, they're so happy. But it's like, you hear any of them who fell or whatever, like, well, I wish everybody could have money so they can see that money isn't the thing that's going to bring you happy. It's just going to be that happiness is going to come from peace of soul. It's going to be, how is your soul? I mean, how is your relationship with God? And how's your relationship with other people? That's the main thing.
Well, I really do like that we're talking about this. It was an unplanned topic given Christmas season and just all the consumerism that's going on, which I'd love to hear more of this stuff in the mainstream. So we just got on Spotify. We're going to be on Apple Podcasts, all those platforms for the audio version. I know these conversations tend to go a little long because we're just naturally like
talkers.
We're just talkers. We're talking about something that we love. So we're going to be on Spotify. If you're on the treadmill, you're at the gym, you're running errands, you'll be able to listen to the audio. And because it's conversation, hopefully it makes it easy to listen to. Yeah.
And pause it. You don't have to listen to it all in one set. I know my wife, when we do our show, always like, they're going too long. I'm like, well, like people like Rogan do like 3-4 hours. I'm like, I don't ever listen to like one in a row. No. It's like, you pause it, you come back. If it's interesting, you get back into it. And I think that's, not everyone has to be like me,
So
put it on 1.5, 1.8, 2.0, depending on who's talking.
With our videos, the plan is, because we do have like an hour, 45-minute videos, and to clip those up into shorter segments, we're still getting there. I think today's episode 7? 7. It's episode 7. So we're still I can't believe it's episode 7 already.
That's crazy.
But we're working on this. But what I wanted to say was, on this point of self-detachment, so much of what is part of the richness of our Catholic tradition and our pieties and our practices, you're hearing in popular culture, but the soul of it has been stripped. The spirit behind it has been stripped. So like Jocko Willink, popular, Navy SEAL, he's out there helping people, it really is, and motivational speaker, discipline equals freedom. Well, I mean, the first time I heard that, discipline equals freedom, I'm like, that's St. Benedict, right? That's nothing new. That's 3rd, 4th, 5th century stuff. That's the stuff that Jesus preached, right? Discipline equals freedom. But it's so devoid from our popular culture. This idea of discipline actually leads to good. right? We want to feel like we're licensed to do whatever we want. No, that's not the case. If you can introduce some discipline, some hardship into your life, if you approach life intentionally, you're actually gonna be freer. You're gonna be fuller. You're gonna be a better version of yourself. You hear those things and it's like, well, where's the soul, right? Or self-detachment, where do we see that? This minimalist movement that really popped on the scene a couple years ago, which still kind of exists. I don't hear about it that much. Maybe my algorithms took me away from it. But that minimalist movement is self-detachment. It's like, do I need to live with abundance? Do I need storage units, and do I need my garage overflowing and the attics overflowing? And there's clothes in the rack that I haven't used maybe for a year, 2 years, 3 years. Do I need boxes of clothes that I don't even open?
No.
Like, do I need all this stuff? Well, that's self-detachment.
What's that? The line from Fight Club, the things you own end up owning you. It's like we end up being like, most people are in credit card debt and they're buying things on credit and they don't even own them. They're buying things that they haven't even had enough money to pay for. Then they're just stacking them and they're obviously not using them.
There was a statistic I heard that's a good point you raised. Like people buy, like over leveraging themselves and buying on credit just to have more because we think we need more.
Well, it's just a dopamine thing too, though. It's like scrolling and getting likes. It's like, oh, I bought something, it shows up. Okay, boom. It's the same, reward system in your body. It's like, oh, I ordered something. Ooh, it's on an Amazon card. I don't have to even pay for it right now. And ooh, it'll be here tomorrow. I don't have to pay for it until 2 months later. But that's part of this doing hard stuff is, okay, yeah, I would like that right now. But is it smart? Is it prudent? No, I'm going to not have that. And then I'm going to save up, or I'm going to go without, or these different things. I heard a really good thing to kind of differentiate ourselves from someone like Jocko or people who are just in the self-improvement space, is that if we just fast or diet or take these things just for our health, that's just vanity mostly. It's good in a sense, but as Catholics, how can we obviously transform that into where mortification can be transformative? That's where that's like having the cross,
bringing the soul into it.
It's having the cross with no Jesus.
Yeah.
That's how Fulton Sheen would describe the communists, is that's what Christianity is. It's the cross with no Jesus, and sometimes in America they say we're all Jesus with no cross. It's like we want that happy clappy Jesus, but not the sacrifice and hard work. And the Soviet Union was all the work and none of the joy. It's like, no, there's a combination of the both. It's like we need to do those hard things, but to do it with the spirit of uniting it with Jesus on the cross, and to make it spiritual, that it's not just about vanity or losing weight, which is good in itself, but as the byproduct, not the original intent of doing it.
Mm-hmm. Well, to go back to the beginning, those cold plunges, cold showers, like they're getting really popular.
Yes.
But when I'm doing it, I'm thinking of, and it sounds silly, but it's not, freeing souls from purgatory.
Yeah.
Right? I'm thinking like, if I'm in here, I'm praying Our Fathers, Hail Marys, Glory Bees, and I'm seriously offering up, Lord, this sucks.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this. It's freezing outside. The house is cold. It's early in the morning. Last thing I want to do is turn on this cold water, but to you be the glory, right?
That's it. Don't waste your suffering.
Yeah, and just give it up.
No, it's hard to understand people on the outside looking in of like, how does that change it? Like, it's still underneath the cold. You're still cold, but like we're too materialistic to see, like, because I've noticed differences when I've done hard things without doing that, and then hard things when I unite those to the cross.
There's a strength that comes.
Yes, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah, when you do the thing without opening it up to grace, without inviting Christ into it, it's different. Because once you do open that door, I love the image of Jesus knocking at the door of our hearts. When you do open that door, a strength and a serenity comes that is undescribable, and that's otherworldly. Your mindset changes, your commitment in your heart, it's steeled up, and you're able to get through it in a way that I didn't know I had within me. Right.
Yeah. You find that, second, third win sometimes.
Yeah.
And I like St. Francis de Sales, his advice from the introduction to the devout life, which is ask, offer, accept. So whatever hard thing that you may do, cold shower, working out, or going to deal with someone you don't want to deal with, or it doesn't have to be exercise per se.
No, having to do chemo treatments.
Anything that's anything that you really don't want to do that
Yeah.
doesn't involve your ego, basically, is ask first God to be with you. Like, Lord, acknowledging he's here everywhere all the time, but acknowledge him, inviting him in. Lord, be with me in this time that's going to be hard. Offer it up to God. Hey, Lord, I'm offering this up to you for people who don't have running water, or for somebody who's suffering, or somebody who's on my heart. And then, Lord, whatever your will, whatever happens, I'm going to accept that. I mean, it's a simple process. It's a ask, offer, accept, and whatever happens, okay, it is what it is. But we can do that with everything we do, from the moment from when we wake up to whatever that we're doing, but especially with the hard things, because it helps us, the grace to get through the hard things. More than like listen to a podcast or something like that. That does help, but I mean, extraordinary grace, I think it will help us a little bit more.
Yeah.
So originally, I think we wanted to talk a little bit about the Mass. I don't know how we went a lot of our self-improvement talk.
Yeah, right.
We go, but we wanted to talk about the Mass, especially this time of year. A lot more people start to show up around Christmas time that normally don't go to Mass, start showing up for Mass. So some of the things that take place at Mass that we, in our own opinions, things that we think shouldn't happen at Mass, or things that maybe that we don't prefer per se. And the first one, which was nice because our pastor actually brought it up a few months ago, which was the clapping at Mass. Now, not clapping along with the music, but clapping for people during the Holy Mass. And that was a big contention. I know my wife, that was a thing she always like give me one of those. Like, she hated, like, whatever. I know it's like little kids are singing.
Is she giving you an elbow because you are clapping?
No, because she was like, yeah, see, I'm telling you, like one of those things, like she just, she's old school when it comes to that. But it's like, the kids choir singing, like, of course you want to clap, or it was a beautiful song, or the homily was great. And it's like, that's how we say, right on. But
that's how we acknowledge something.
That's how we acknowledge things. However, we're also at Mass. Mass isn't about the people. As great as people are, it's about God. So I like that, that's, unless it's like, okay, hey guys, give him a round of applause, and kind of separate, like a separate space, like at the end, how kind of once in a while he does it. But
I loved, so St. Benedict writes on this, and he says, Pope Benedict 16th. Hopefully soon to be saint.
In the spirit liturgy, I think he wrote something.
Pope Benedict 16th. And I'll paraphrase it. I don't have the quote in front of me, but he says, when we clap in the liturgy, we turn the liturgy into a form of entertainment. So, in other words, when you clap at Mass, you're turning the Mass, or what's happened at Mass, into a spectacle, into a form of entertainment. Yeah. And it takes away from the spirit of the Mass and why we're all assembled together in that moment. Yeah. I remember, so I had the blessing and the privilege to be at his last Mass as Pope, his last public Mass at least, St. Peter's Basilica, and it was right before his final a blessing, like closing blessing to the Mass. So we'd all receive communion, everybody's back, post-communion hymn is concluded, he's about to give the blessing, and then the St. Peter's Basilica just erupts with applause. And it's like standing ovation, it goes for a couple minutes. I mean, it's just, you can imagine, right? This is the Pope's last Mass. And he just stood there. I mean, I'm sure you could watch it on YouTube if you look up the Pope's last Mass. He just stood there, and just a little smile on his face. And he let it happen. He didn't interrupt it. But his line was so poignant. He said, "Let us return to prayer." Yeah. So it's like in that moment, he acknowledged, like, what we just did, it took us out of it. I want to invite us back into it. He gave his blessing, and then, Mass continued as it would. When those moments happen, you're right. It's because we usually want to acknowledge our appreciation, our love, our support for whatever it is, whether it's a choir piece, whether it's a homily, what have you, a video, something that's showed. But that takes away from the prayer and the spirit of why we were gathered.
Yeah. And just hitting on the first point that you said, that it turns into entertainment. Mm-hmm. And we're never going to be more entertaining than the movie or a play or
you can't compete with culture.
We're not going to compete with the culture. So if you're looking for that at Mass, it's not the place to get it. Yeah, you can still have beautiful music, great homilies, great hospitality, and all these things that are very important. But if you're going there to be entertained, like Gladiator. Are you not entertained? You know, like one of those things. No, that's not, you know, the only people that were clapping at the crucifix were the demons. You know, that's what I like to be reminded of. You know, sometimes it's like, it isn't just.
So that's the distinction. Well, is there a distinction to be drawn between clapping for something? What about clapping?
Clapping for the music.
Clapping with the music, or clapping as an act of praise?
I'm not against it. It's just not my speed. I feel I can still feel the music and still sing and still be part of the worship without clapping my hands. I know our parish, you know, we got lively music. It's contemporary. The mass I usually go to, which it's great. I'm just not personally a clapper, but, you know, I'll sing and I'll be, you know, I know all the songs, I sing and stuff, but I'm not a big clapper myself.
Mm-hmm. Well, so if we further that distinction, if we unpack it a little bit more, when you're clapping for someone or something that's occurred at Mass, it detracts from the prayer. If you're clapping as if it's a part of your community's culture to have maybe contemporary music, especially if you go into cultures like African cultures, where that's just how they pray. That's a physical expression of prayer. You know, there's different modes of prayer. St. Dominic has 9 of them, different gestures of the hand, different postures of the body. That's a different type of clap. That's a clap that's oriented towards God.
Towards God.
That's a clap that gives glory to God. That's a clap of thanksgiving. That's a clap of praise, right? And so the things that we do at Mass are meant to orient us towards God communally, because Mass is a public prayer. So together as a community, as brothers and sisters gather around the one table, we're coming together, we're clapping, we're giving praise and glory and honor to God. I'm like you. I don't clap. I don't have any rhythm. So, and that's okay.
I just feel weird.
If that's not you, don't do it.
I just, you know, some people are really good clappers though. Like I'll be looking around like, oh wow, they're on rhythm. Like they're into it, you know. I can still be into it. I can still actively participate without clapping because I know the word. I'm singing the songs, like, you know, I'm belting them out. Like the person in front may not like it, but I mean, I sing. So.
Well, again, even if you could be a terrible singer, everybody can sing in the shower.
Yes.
Everybody can lend their voice, sing in praise of God. And that's what you're doing.
And I think that's a bad excuse. I got a bad voice, so I shouldn't sing. It's like,
no,
it's just an excuse to kind of sit back. And I think that's where, that's part of what it is that, the way that, St. John has welcomed people and the way that the Mass is celebrated is because that, we're encouraging people to be actively participating. Everyone can do that in a different way, but like Father says, sitting like this is not being active. And that goes for anything. If I'm having a conversation with you and I'm sitting like this, what message does this send to you? That I'm kind of standoffish, I'm kind of bored, I'm kind of like,
I'm
like
disconnected.
I'm disconnected, but my hands are open, our postures. That's why all these things that we're talking about is important. How we kneel, if we clap, if we stand up, if we bow, if we kneel.
Yeah. The
things that we do with our body matters because we're body and spirit. And that's how we manifest our faith. I mean, that's through our body. So that's why those things matter. But
it's an actual mode of communication.
I mean, it's the majority of how we communicate. Out of the communication with the words, it's like, it's like 65% of it isn't words. It's all the other stuff. It's your body language. It's how you say it, your inflection. It's all those different things. It's only something like 8% is the actual words that you actually say, but it's how that you communicate it. Obviously, if I tell you, no, I don't want to do this, or I say, actually, I have this thing and we're going to do this. It's just, how we say things and how we do things matter. Especially, it couldn't matter more than one of the most important things that we can do, which was worship God the way that He wants us to worship Him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just look at during COVID, having to do all these Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
I mean, even though I'm seeing you and I'm hearing you, I feel like I'm not connected to you.
Yeah.
You almost feel like you're isolated, even though here you are. So to be connected, to be with each other, you're right. It's not about having the arms folded. It's about how can I open myself up, not just to each other, not just the message that I'm sending to my neighbor who's in the pew with me, or to Father who's looking at me. That doesn't matter as much, but it's like to God. What's my physical orientation? And it's going to dictate my spiritual disposition, right? Spiritually, am I going to open up too?
Yeah.
Or am I going to be reserved? And
just the bare, I mean, a lot of it is just saying the prayers. I mean, some people you just be watching, like they're not even saying the Our Father. They're not even saying the Psalm response. They're not like actively like just being part of it. I mean, that's what the Mass is. It's like we're actively part of this. It's a communal prayer. It's like we are called to be actively engaged into the prayers of what's going on. It's like it's a beautiful thing that we're able to be part of it. It's like it's not something that's happening over here. We're actively engaged in the prayers, and it's just like in anything, you're gonna get out of it what you put into it, and that's whether that's any relationship that you have, whether if that's with your spouse, if you only spend an hour a week with your wife, and in that hour your arms are crossed, you don't say anything, you sit there, and that's it. Your relationship with your wife's not going to be that great. But if you get home every day, you greet your wife with a hug and tell her how much you love her, and you come home, the house is clean, you're doing all the stuff you're supposed to do, it's a different relationship. You talk every day, you know each other, you know what they like, you know all the things about them. It's a different relationship. And that's the same with God in our relationship that we approach Jesus on Sundays. If we approach it, in a halfway, then we're going to get half back. I mean, it's just, that's the mode in which we receive things matters. It's like, that goes for the Eucharist. If you've been going every Sunday for 30 years and you feel like you're going through the motions and nothing's changing, is it God that needs to change, you think? Or is it you, maybe, the mode, the which way that you are approaching God? It's something maybe to think about, because God doesn't change. I mean, it's open 100% of the time, 24/7, all the time. God's available. I mean, he doesn't change. It's us.
What changes is our experience of God.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that bother you?
Bother me a mess?
Yeah.
Do you really want to poke at that?
Well, because it's funny, because your other show is like hospitality, which is great. We should be able to have both. We should
talking about discipleship?
Yeah. We're supposed to have hey, these are the things what we want to do. These are the things that we probably shouldn't do. And this is not just to poke fun at people or to discourage anybody, but just to know, like, especially if you haven't been to church in a while.
Yeah.
Or, hey, you're maybe new to this. These are some housekeeping type stuff, like, hey, you probably shouldn't do these things, or maybe you should do those.
Well, it's not like the philosophical mode of thinking. You can know something by two ways.
Yes.
Via negativa, what it is not. Via positiva, what it is. And so it is healthy to know, like, this is what you don't do at Mass, so to get a fuller experience of Mass. So, I mean, there's a couple things that I could really talk about. The thing that gets me is, so this is in no particular order. What we're not supposed to do at Mass is be territorial.
Yeah.
Okay. So what does that mean? This is my pew.
This is my pew.
This is where I go. This is where I park. This is my routine when I come to church, because I'm coming to church to experience God. And this is what I have to do, right, to preserve the integrity of this experience.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing. I have to say these prayers before Mass. I have to say these prayers after Mass. I have to sit on this particular spot.
It's almost superstitious, almost.
Some of it. I think if I could say anything with surety, it's that Jesus doesn't like pharisaical rigidity. And so what do I mean by that? He doesn't like adherence to law that takes rules and empties them of the spirit of the rule by which it was given to us. Yeah. So there's reasons why we do things, but if you take that and you make that the end-all be-all without the spirit of why that rule was put in place, he doesn't like that. Like, it's clear in the Gospels time and time again. So you don't go to Mass because it's your prayer. You go to Mass to join the community in the public prayer. Mass is the public worship of the church. It's the public prayer of the church. It's the highest form of prayer that we as a community can offer to God. And so when you go, how do you go? What sort of disposition do you have? So am I going to show up and say, like, hey, there's somebody that I haven't seen here before, I'm going to give up my spot. Maybe there's a family that's sitting in the pew, I'm going to move over. Am I going to extend hospitality? Am I going to go out? Am I going to do the uncomfortable things? We started at the beginning of the pod by saying doing uncomfortable things. Am I going to do uncomfortable things that are actually for the good of the experience, not just of myself, but of others? Like, if I walked in and Jesus was sitting in this spot, how would I treat him? That's the thing that I don't like. When you start getting territorial in church, it rubs me the wrong way.
Well, it rubs people who are outside the church too. So, like, if someone hasn't been to church in a while and you stumble into the church and you're sitting in someone's seat who's there every Sunday and been coming for 50 years, and they say something, well, that's my spot. It's like, well, you had an opportunity to greet somebody who came back to church. That Jesus tells us, like you said, time and time again, it's like, no, you're at a banquet. Don't sit at the places of honor. Go sit at the back and leave those open for other people.
Yeah.
So for Catholics, they want the spots in the back usually. So the spots in front are
those
usually,
are the coveted spots.
Those are the coveted spots.
Yeah.
The ones up front, it's like, no, for real, no, the last will be first, the first will be last. So no, it's, I get it. A lot of people don't like to be up front, but I get the territorial thing. That's just, it's weird, especially like, if they're going to be mean about it. Like it's one thing, like if you get there, hey, you want to get here 30 minutes early to sit in your spot? You earned it.
More power to you.
You earned it. You got up half hour, you're there. But if it's like someone else is already there and then you come in there and then you're like giving them mean, like what do you,
the side eye, like what do you really
what are you here for? Is this about your spot or what you're getting out of it? Or is this about what you're here to give God? I mean, that's part of the issue here is, too many people, especially people who fall away from the faith, it's like, usually the one thing they say is, well, I wasn't getting anything out of it. Like that's a lot of the times of the knock on the Catholic Church is like, well, I left because I wasn't being fed. So I went to an evangelical church because they got great homilies, they're great sermons and great messages. But our faith isn't about what we get, it's about what we give. And the Mass isn't about the homily per se, which it's great. It's about the Eucharist. It's about what we get. I mean, it's like we get Jesus himself. So it's like, it's not about what, it's about what we give back. So are we bringing our full selves? On Sunday, are we bringing, our seat that we don't want to sit in? Are we willing to give up a seat for somebody else or not? Are we willing to, lay down, our pride or lay down those things? Are we there for the right reasons?
That's an important point, Bobby, because I think people come to Mass with maybe just not the right frame of mind or just the right glasses on to perceive what Mass is actually supposed to be to them. Because if the homily's bad, then they'll just knock the whole experience. Or if the music isn't good, they'll knock the whole experience. Or if somebody cut them off, or if somebody maybe didn't, they didn't get up when you were trying to get in the pew, like they can find any small slight to write off the whole Mass experience. And it's not about that, right? The Mass is more than its parts. And those parts are all supposed to open us up, prepare us to receive the Eucharist, which is the climax of not just the Mass, but of our whole Christian life. And so you're there for that moment. So God bless him. Father could have the thickest accent in the world. His homilies can be dry as all get out. Yeah, Father, should you try to get better? Of course. Is Father trying to get better? I hope so. And most of the times they're trying. Same goes with the music. Same goes with the greeters, the ushers, all those parts. But it's like, I'm here for this moment where bread and wine are turned into body and blood.
Period.
I'm here for that reception. That's what feeds me. That's what nourishes me. And you're right. We hear so many times, right? The largest group of evangelicals is fallen away Catholics. It's a tragedy because they do feel like they're being fed outside of the church. And that's something that we as church have to realize. Like the beauty, our mysteries, right? The things that we hold dear, which we're focusing on the Eucharist, but all the sacraments are the mysteries that have been trusted to the church. They're meant to feed us. They're meant to be those things that give us a fuller taste of life. They're not doing that for people because if they were, the church wouldn't be stagnating or in decline. And so we have to look at those things that are resonating with people. People now think with their hearts more than their heads. And so I've got to be very careful to not create a worship experience that Father Mileta likes to use the phrase that embalms the past, right? Because if we go to the past and how they used to worship in the past, then that's going to resonate with people today.
You're never going to get it back. It's never going to be the past.
Yeah.
You're never going to duplicate that. I mean, the best part, I like St. Augustine describes the church, ever ancient, ever new. It's both at the same time.
It's the ever new thing that people worry about.
They don't like anything new. They don't like anything new.
We have to acknowledge
whether
that.
It's church or the grocery store moved the cereal aisle, to somewhere else. I mean, people don't like change.
We have to acknowledge, though, that I see why people are uncomfortable with the ever new part.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid of losing the pearl of great price that's been given to us. They're afraid of, the baby with the bathwater. They're afraid of losing that which makes us Catholic.
Yeah.
Right? There's such an emphasis on orthodoxy. We're afraid of heterodoxy, those things that take us off path. But we can't be afraid of that, because if we really believe God is who he is, and we believe the word that he's given to us, and not just that, we believe that the Spirit here guiding us, guiding the church, then it doesn't matter who the Pope is. It doesn't matter what Father says. It doesn't matter what the latest trending thing is. If we as a church are guided by the Spirit, we're going to be okay. And it's for us to continue to unpack revelation. That's what innovation is. It's not coming up with something new out of the box. It's unpacking that revelation that's been entrusted to us to make it applicable to the times that we live in.
And unpacking it to relate
to make it
relatable,
relevant to people. And so the Mass that we have now, that was an innovation. At one point, there was no English. At one point, there were no missalettes. At one point, there was no lectionary. At one point, there was no organ. At one point, there were no vestments. At one point, there were no church buildings. And so everything we have and hold dear is an innovation.
As ever new.
Yeah. And that's okay.
Yeah. And I think that we hit about it on the last point was that what matters is...
I didn't realize that this was a trigger for me.
It's all right. It's all right. Is that decaf in there or you got regular?
It's decaf.
Okay.
I was watching, so my mom's Orthodox. She raised Orthodox. So I grew up in the Orthodox Church. I love the Orthodox Church. I love Byzantine traditions. I love icons. I love all that stuff, the richness of it all. It's like Pope John Paul, right? The church is meant to be breathed through two lungs.
Two lungs, yeah.
The East and the West. And so when you get exposed to it, they've preserved a mystery and a sacredness and a ritualism that we don't have in the West, which I hope we could regain. We kind of lost sight of that, especially in America with the development of the church in the last 50, 70 years. But what I don't like is, again, going back to this hyper rigidity where it's got to be this way, and any deviation from it is heresy.
No.
Any deviation from it is an affront to the pureness of the faith.
No.
That just gets me going, because it's like, no, then you're placing church above the Spirit that the Father sent, that Jesus sent.
Yeah, and I think too, I think Jesus answers this question with, when he's on the Mount Transfiguration, who does he have on both of his sides? The law, the prophets, Elijah and Moses. Yeah. So you have both. You need both. You need the law, which is as rigid as can be. It's written in stone. Yeah. It's not changing. It's rigid. But then you have the prophets, somebody like Elijah who's calling people for repentance or to change things, or this is corrupt, this needs to change. You need that dynamic between the both, because if, like you said, if it's just rigid, if it's just Pharisees, and if it's only the way we always have done things, then it can turn into stone. That's the trap. It can be so ossified where it doesn't want to ever move, change, or give a little bit. And I get, like what you said, people are worried about, especially when it comes to dogmas and doctrines or these things that we hold firm to that shouldn't change ever. They're not going to change. So it's a lot of the things outside of the church walls, how we approach the environment, how do we approach immigration reform, how do we approach people who are divorced, how do we approach different things where more practical versus the dogma and the doctrine things. But I think, like you said, a lot of it has to do with how do we approach it. One of the things that really bothers me is when people leave right after communion. If that's when you come to Mass that, I can see once in a while people do have things and they're busy and that, okay.
It does happen.
But really, you're getting like 3 to 5 minutes maybe, and you're trying to beat the rush out of the parking lot. But is that the right disposition to bring to church? Not only setting the example, Father Mileto likes to always say to the children that, we always call it the Judas shuffle. The first one to leave after communion was Judas. That's why I tell my son, it's like, no, you stay for the final blessing, and it's just respectful. It's like, we're the guests. We come in. Jesus, the priest hasn't even, processed out yet, and you're racing him out. So if we come in and with the attitude of hurry up and get it over with, or I need to hurry up and go, and like we've already failed, because we're already and that goes with anything. It's like you show up to your daughter's recital and you're like, hurry up and get it over with. No, you're not going to enjoy it. You're not going to appreciate your daughter playing the violin. Or, hey, you know what? I'm on a date with my wife. Oh, I can't hurry up, wait to get home and watch a football game.
Yeah.
No, it's just a bad disposition to go into it. But if I go into it like knowing that, like, hey, I got DVR, so I'll go and watch it when I want to watch it, like one of those situations. And I'm going to give you 100% of my attention. I'm even going to leave my phone in the car because I'm going to give you 100% of my attention. That's what we do at Mass. We get so much of the week, distractions 24/7. We get an hour straight with no phones to sit there and just put all of our attention on God. And some people don't want to do an hour. It's like, I'm going to do 55 minutes. I'm going to quickly, but I'm happy that Father, is kind of shaming people and calling them out because it is setting a bad example.
He's not, I wouldn't say shaming.
Not shaming, but challenging people.
He's challenging you.
He's holding a higher standard of the way that it should be and not be,
It goes to the self-detachment thing. Yeah. Like you have to detach from that thing which you think takes priority over completing this act of worship that you obviously have said is important because you took the time to not only just come here, to wake up on a Sunday, to get dressed, to get the family ready, to make it out to church. Like it has some value and importance. See it through, right? And so that's the challenge. Detach from those things that you think are pulling you away. There could be sometimes where it's legitimate, but you have to really question yourself. Like, is it a priority that I pick up these 5 minutes? Are these 5 minutes really going to change my morning?
And I think then the other thing I think would be on the other end, is on the front end, is that, if you're coming to spend time with the Lord, you probably should come at least on time.
I'm so guilty of this.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm like the opposite. I'm like the, like super early. Like my wife is always like, you Fredricksons, you guys are always so early. Like my brothers will show up like an hour early before the party starts. Or like, we're always early. Like I'm at least 15, 20 minutes early everywhere I go, no matter what.
Yeah.
But, for me, when I'm rushed, I don't feel right. Like I don't want to be rushing to church and like, hurry up, kids, get in the car, running. We're screaming and yelling. It's like by the time I walk in, it's just like a rat race. You get there, it's like,
see, that's where you and I are two different people.
Yeah, I'm way different.
Because I never feel rushed.
No, see.
I don't get anxious. I don't get, because we've talked about this before. How did we talk about the show?
Yeah.
You actually get anxious.
I do.
Like
so I just set it up.
I'm loving life. I'm enjoying.
No, not
I'm soaking in moments. I'm like, all right, kids, let's go.
Whatever.
All right, yeah.
No, I get up. I get up early, so that's my thing. So
Same.
I just get up early. I just leave early. But it's a battle. When you got a family, you got to get the kids, and this one's hair's not brushed. This one's not wearing what they're supposed to be wearing. They can't find the shoes, and those are the wrong shoes, and but at the end of the day, I could wake up 15 minutes earlier. I could be, in a position, because like for me, obviously not everybody is where I'm at, and I understand that, but I'm trying to lay out some of the best practices of what's worked for me. And for me, when I walk into Mass on Sunday, I've already contemplated and read the readings. So I'm prepared going in. That's just like we said with anything, is what you put into it is what you're going to get out into it. So if I go into Mass and I've read all the readings already, and I'm prepared when I get there that in anticipation that God wants to speak something to me during the Mass. That's how I approach Mass, that he personally wants me there for a reason. And he wants to give me insight on what I'm supposed to be doing for the week.
Which we do that in other areas of life. We do that in our activities. If you're going to cook, you actually think about, okay, these are the things that I need.
Of course.
This is where I'm going to get them from. I'm going to look up maybe a variation to an ingredient. I know what bowls I need, what utensils, like all that forethought you put into it, so that when you get to cooking, you're not having I got to run to the store again. I forgot this. I didn't have this.
Yes.
This didn't turn out right. So that intentionality that you put into something really, bears fruit when you're actually in the midst of what that thing is. So you're going to put thought into Mass, that when you go to Mass, it's going to be even more richer of an experience.
Well, I think too, it's like, what's more important? We put so much time and effort into things that really don't matter. Like, my wife, God bless her, like every gift that she gives, she puts so much thought into like every little detail about it and this and that. And that's her thing. Her love language is gift giving. It's not mine.
It's not yours?
It's not mine. Definitely not mine. But
are you a service guy? Acts of service?
No, I don't know what my thing is. My thing is, I don't know what it is. It's not giving. It's not giving gifts. I'll put it that way. It's loving them, I guess. I don't know. In the way that they want to be loved, I guess.
Okay.
But gifts, it's like, to me, that's like, It's like Christmas. Okay, yeah, gifts are important, but is it the most important thing? But I get it. The right gifts is nice. But I guess my point was how come we don't put more emphasis into how important preparation for Mass is? It's like there's no preparation. Most people, if you ask, you poll 100 Catholics, out of the 100, how many people did anything before they show up to Mass to prepare for the Mass? What do you think the number would be out of 100?
You know, that'd be cool if we started that. We should put a mailing list together and just send out a weekly email, like a Mass prep email.
Yeah.
With readings and like a reflection that people can have before Mass.
Why not? I mean, if we're going to be purposely Catholic, we have to do things intentionally. We have to be purposeful about it. We have to think about it. And so for me, what I do, I bought Word on Fire has a book from Peter Kraft. I actually bought Father Declan one last year. There's three cycles, A, B, and C for the readings, and it's the readings and then like a reflection. So then I've already read the readings, read a reflection, usually read a couple different ones. And then when I get to Mass, I bring like a Mass journal. So when I'm listening to the readings, I already know what the readings are. I already wrote them down in my book, but I think it would be easier, like you said, to have like an email. Like I already have it printed up. I have like a book, a journal. And then I'm like, okay, God, what do you want? What I always write on the top. What's God trying to say? Okay, so I read the readings, I'm listening. And then something, just like when you're doing Lectio, something will stand out from, and you don't know why. Why did, out of the 150 words in the first reading, why did those two jump out at me? Maybe that's God trying to talk to me. So then I think about it, I pray about it. Like, God, what are you trying to say about this? And think about it. I'll write it down. And then it's weird how those things stick out for a reason. And then just do the whole thing. Then like the Psalm, something else would jump out. I'll just write a little note or something. And then the Gospel, something from the homily. And then I'll go back and look, like, in the end of the week, like, oh yeah, I forgot about this thing. And, God was trying to talk to me in this way and to do a journal. Not everyone has to do a journal. You could do it without writing anything down at all.
I do it on my phone.
Yeah, you could do it in your phone.
I've got a note on my phone.
Or you can just, listen for God to talk to you and then just put it into action right away, just like whatever, put it in your phone or do something like that. So I think if we show up early and we stay the full time, you don't have to be early, just be on time. Be in your pew before the music starts. Getting into a space where you're prepared. Like, are you doing prayers beforehand? Or are you just, just like anything. It's like if you show up, that you got the ACT, you're about to take a hard test, and you show up, you're hungover, you're running late, you didn't eat breakfast, and you show up, because we're already fasting.
How'd you know I took the ACTs?
And then you show up, and you were running late.
Yeah.
And how's your performance going to be? It's like, but, this shouldn't be performance-based, but this should be grace-based. So how at the end of the Mass, when you walked out of there, if something hadn't changed, then maybe we should be looking at it. It's like if you worked out for a year in the gym and you saw 0 results, you're exactly the same. You didn't lose fat, didn't gain any muscle. You still weigh the exact you walked in. Wouldn't you look at the workout plan or your diet, or you would reevaluate like, hey, you know what? I've been doing this for so long, nothing's changing. Everything's the same. Like, I'm not getting anything out of this. Why am I even doing it? And that's part of the problem, why the people feel like they're not getting anything out of it. But that's like going to the gym, you didn't stretch, you don't have the workout clothes, you don't even know what to do, you don't have a diet. It's like, well, how do you expect randomly to just get better?
Yeah.
It's like we have to also do on the front end sometimes. And I think a lot of people just don't know maybe what to do, and they need help, or they need people to walk with them or to guide them and to help them. And hopefully people listening to this will help a little bit, but do something before the Mass, whether that's modern technology. We also have the Hallow app. Like, we'll listen on the way to the car. There's a show for kids that, like, it's like kind of funny. I think it's Katie McGrady. She's on it. Her and her husband, they do like, that's like a little skit. It's like 8 minutes, perfect on the time. And then the kids, are like, oh, okay, this is what's going on. Or, hey, in the car on the way home, we're talking about the readings or trying to get more out of it. If you want to get more out of it, you're going to have to put more into it.
Mm-hmm.
What else are some things that get your craw? Get you real, or what they say, that really grinds my gears.
I'm not a grinds my gears kind of guy, so this is why it's challenging for me.
Oh, all kinds of things grind my gears.
Really?
Oh yeah. I know how to use the clutch though, so I can get straight
Jump through it.
What was one of the other ones that was bothering me? Oh, the sick. We were talking about when people are sick. Especially post-COVID stuff. So it's like, if you're sick, you still say you're not contagious. You can still come to mass, but maybe just maybe kind of sit towards like not on top of people.
Yeah.
Like if you're coughing and stuff, to maybe not cough.
It's okay to have a little distance.
Yeah, just have a little distance, spread yourself out a little bit. You know, I think that's if you're sick.
It's generosity of spirit.
Or if you just like blew your nose, don't maybe try not to reach my hand like a sign of peace. That's kind of one of those other things. After COVID, I'm always like, oh, okay. I love you, brother.
Yeah.
You know, like one of those things. All right, bring it.
You don't do the knucks?
I'll do the knucks too. I'll do the knucks. But for the most part, I'm trying. I'm just not gonna. Or if you're sick, definitely. What was the other one? Don't take the precious cup.
Mm. I don't know. I'll always take Jesus in the precious blood.
Every time I can get them.
I mean, if my nose is running, then I'm just out of courtesy.
That's what I mean. A courtesy.
Yeah, out of courtesy.
A courtesy if you got some.
Yeah.
You know.
Because I've received the fullness in the body.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
The cup just adds to the blessing.
Yes.
Not just, but it does.
Well, isn't it? It's crazy because, like in the morning when I do daily mass, and when I serve, I get the cup. But every single time after I get the cup, when I go to pray, it's different because it obviously it's alcohol. It's still there. It's a little bit, but just God.
What kind of gulp are you taking?
A decent size one, a decent size one. But it always gives me like, it warms my body. Like it gives like, that's why God used wine. Why else would he use that? He could have just used water, could have just used bread and water. Why wine? Well, because obviously, I mean, all throughout the Old Testament, it's like, it's for good. It's like all throughout Sirach, it talks about it. Like, well, wine's good in moderation. It's a good thing. He made 120
offering of the fruit of the earth.
Exactly.
Right? That's literally what we say.
But it does give you a little extra kick at the prayer. At least for me, it's like I feel like an overwhelming feeling. Plus of the.
It's actually more alcoholic because it's pure.
Yeah.
It's more pure than just your regular
wine
table. You know.
Well, there's parameters for what the wine needs to be. It's 11% alcohol.
Yeah. See.
So it's not like this 5-6% stuff that you get at home on the usual.
Exactly. And there's something to it. Like every
if you're
time,
taking glugs like Bobby does, more blood. Those prayers are gonna be really.
Well, I got to be careful because like I won't lie. One time, like the Eucharist, extraordinary Eucharist minister like spilled a little of the wine. I saw it, not from me, but I just seen it.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do?
What did you do?
I didn't use my tongue, but I just went down.
Did you really?
I did. Oh yeah, wow. It bothered me. I went right after mass, went straight to the spot. I seen it, went down, got on my hands and knees. Oh yeah.
Where were you?
Here. This is like 2 years ago. Yeah, but, oh, man, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what what you're supposed to do is go get a purificator.
Yeah.
And then you put in a purificator, then the purificator goes in a bottle, in a bowl of water.
Yeah, but it was like
good for you.
Yeah, it was on the ground.
You don't want people to step on it.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, another thing. So if I'm going to talk about something that bothers me at Mass, having too many Eucharistic ministers, extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion. And there's a reason why we're called extraordinary, because the priest is the ordinary, a deacon is the ordinary minister of communion. That I think that's been used a little too liberally, especially in Western churches and American churches in particular. I think if you can go to, if you're rushing out of church and you're going to a breakfast place and you're willing to wait 45 minutes for a table just to have some scrambled eggs and some bacon.
You can wait an extra 5 minutes.
You can wait a couple extra minutes to receive communion, right, from Father, from a deacon.
Not
that I don't. I'll go to extraordinary ministers. I mean,
I agree. A lot of times, though, what it does is it just causes confusion sometimes. I mean, sometimes, like most churches, though, it's like it's too many. It's like most Catholic churches aren't like busting at the seams where it's like, okay, we need to bring in 10, bring them all in. It's like, but not all parishes have multiple deacons either, which is nice. I just think use prudence, use judgment,
discretion.
Use it discretion, and I prefer obviously priest than deacon than the extraordinary ministers. I prefer to go. I receive on the tongue, so it's like I try to go to the clergy.
That's where understanding the rule and the spirit of the rule is so important. Because we break out into tribes so easily. You've got a tribe that says, no, you should never have extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion, that it should always be a priest or a deacon. And then you have others that say, well, there's nothing wrong with it. And like they want more extraordinary ministers of Holy. It's like use discernment, use discretion, understand why the church is allowed for it, right? Because in circumstances that dictate it, if there's only maybe one priest, if there's no priest, if there's no support, deacons to the priest, if the congregation is large enough, if the assembly is large enough, and it warrants it, it's a pastoral necessity.
Yeah.
So the church allows us to do that. But when you're right, if it's being used excessively, that
to save 2 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like, it could be excessive. Well, especially too, it's like there's something to.
And then when I receive from a priest or a
Yes.
deacon, especially after COVID, it took me a while to get back to, because different places are doing it differently. I'll receive on the tongue. There's just something about receiving on the tongue versus receiving in the hand, which that could be a whole conversation by itself. If it's a priest or a deacon, I'll receive on the tongue for a couple reasons. I mean, when it's a priest, he's my spiritual father, and that is a form of me humbling myself before God and actually allowing Father to feed me, to nourish me spiritually, right?
Amen. Yeah.
Through the body and blood of Christ. So I'll receive on the tongue. But if it's not father or deacon, I won't receive on the tongue from an extraordinary minister, mainly because they're not trained on how to do it. The last thing I want to see is Jesus fall on the floor, right? To your story.
Yeah.
Precious blood drip on the floor, the Eucharist to fall on the floor. Father, I mean, he knows, he's been doing it a while.
Yeah.
It takes a certain flick of the...
I do have another funny story. So what would you do in this situation? So I just received Jesus. That's not funny. I'm just laughing now thinking about it. But then I sneezed. And part of Jesus went out of my nose.
Oh, no.
Into my hand.
Did you lick it?
Of course I had. I had.
Oh, can you guys clip that up as a short?
I had to. It was like one of the worst timing sneezes of all time.
See, because you can you'll do that and you'll get some, but to see it and to make the decision.
Well, there's nothing worse than that feeling like when you sneeze and like something actually gets shot out that's not like.
I'm just picturing
like food. Like if you ever have food and you sneeze and it comes out of your nose.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
I'm just picturing Jesus looking at you like, oh, don't do it, Bobby. Don't do it. Oh.
I mean, what else would you do in that situation?
That's the only
purificator.
That's the only option I had.
Put in a bowl of water.
Back into the back at it.
Yeah.
So
that's what I would have done. I would have tissue, and then you put the tissue in a bowl of water, it dissolves. I'm sorry, I'm not. You're a lot older than I am.
I just went for it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a bold move.
Yeah. The other thing that, really, the thing about the Mass is that we should definitely always, our parish does a great job of this, is making it a welcoming environment for kids and families. Mm-hmm. Our parish is a lot of families, so it's just normal to hear babies crying and, but there are those, I've been to parishes where all of a sudden you see a baby's crying and someone's like, giving them dirty looks or giving the it's one thing if their baby's going crazy, okay, you can stand up. You don't have to necessarily do the cry rooms. But there is some on both sides to try to keep it at a minimum. And if it gets real bad, to take a step up and bounce on the babies and stuff like that. But as far as the people that are in the pews, to make those people feel so comfortable, the opposite, because it's so hard for especially young families to come together to, the struggles that we're talking about getting to Mass. Now you get smaller kids, you're getting everyone together, eating and getting it out the door, getting them in there. And then you sit down and then one's crying, one's got to go to the bathroom, one's dropping Cheerios, one's doing this. And then the people in front of you are giving you a hard time, like you're inconveniencing them. That's like the worst feeling, especially that's like the opposite of hospitality, because it was so hard enough just to get there. It's like you had to do everything to not lose your stuff to get there. And then you get there and then people are giving you a dirty look. I've heard some horror stories from people who've fallen away because of feeling not welcome because they got a bunch of screaming kids.
Yeah. I've raised 2 kids so far, thanks be to God. Never once can I think of I've ever been embarrassed. And my kids have done stuff that make you red in the face at Mass. It's like, I could be anywhere right now, but I'm raising the next generation of Catholics. And so I'll get angry. I'll get upset. Why are you acting the way you act? Like, you know better. But to actually be embarrassed, that hasn't happened. And fortunately, I've never run into a situation where somebody's made me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Most of the time, you'll see like the little side-eye thing. But you're right. To go out of our way to help and to recognize those parents are doing what they ought to be doing.
Or to take it to really another step is to encourage them. Like when you see a mom and especially if the dad's working, she's there by herself and she's like
good
a warrior.
Yeah.
Like, hey, good job, mom. The kids are well behaved. You're doing a great job. Encourage them. Like, no, you're doing good. Even if it's not.
Yeah.
Even if it's like she's struggling. Like, you're doing a good job, mom.
Yeah.
Don't be hard on yourself. Like, this is the future.
Good.
Thank you for being here. Like making them feel even more welcome. If you want your church to grow, you need families, and especially young families. I mean, unfortunately, that's the problem with most.
Father will do that. If there's a kid or a couple in the church that are really going, he'll actually
acknowledge it.
Yeah. Do you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful? Like that's the sound of the future.
Man, we had one at our old parish, Father Jack, God bless you. He, our son at the time was like 2, and out of nowhere he got away. Took off running down the main aisle, made it all the way up to the altar almost, and during Father's homily. And he just made it like, look at this. Jesus said, let the kids come to me, and like he made it like a big thing. Everyone laughed and we got up like, it was like one of those things.
Yeah.
But that could have easily went the wrong way. Like, I can't believe you let your kid just run around, like, because that is some people's experience, and we should just be cognizant of that.
What do you think of kids running around in church when mass isn't going on?
I don't like that either.
Yeah, so tell me, what do you think?
Well, obviously the church is supposed to be a sacred space for people to pray, even when the mass is not going on.
Yeah.
We're blessed enough to have a nice-sized narthex. I tell my kids don't even run in there. As much as they want to run after mass, they want to, they see their friends from school, they want to run.
Nobody's in church.
No one's in church.
It's you and your kid.
I don't want them running around. I'm going to try, the best I can, but even the talking should be to a minimum, or at least more like a hush talk, because there should be, there's not a lot of spaces for people to stay and have silence and to pray. They have other spaces for people to talk.
Yeah.
That's
such a cultural thing, because if you go to Hispanic churches, it's like they'll tell you, I'm in my father's house. Like it's very normal. It's like they're going home. And you'll see kids running around. You'll see kids it's commonplace.
Yeah, but usually when they're running, they're making a ton of noise.
That's true.
So if we can kids welcome, try to be the best you could be. Let's not make them feel uncomfortable, but let's not also let them pull the things off the walls.
But let's go back to the idea. I'm playing devil's advocate here. If this is the time for common prayer, there's times for personal prayer.
Yeah.
You can go to an adoration chapel.
Sure.
You can come to church when it's not community time. There's a place you go into your room, close the door. Your father knows what you're doing when you do it in secret. So again, we've gathered as a family in our Father's house. The kids are going to act like kids. Let the children come to me.
Yeah. It's not my house. If the kids, you don't want them playing tag and going crazy, but if they are, they're playing it and there's nothing going on, they're not disturbing anybody, I can't see why not.
Yeah.
I just try to tell my kids to be under control. You want your kids to be little rascals, go for it, but me, I'm going to try to at least pull them out. Because some people are going to stay behind and pray. Some people want to pray the rosary. Some people want to just sit there and be with God, because let's just be honest, most of the churches aren't open. You can't just walk into the church and just go personal pray. That's just not a reality. We're blessed to have a perpetual adoration chapel. We could do that. But unfortunately, you can't just walk up to off a street and just go to any church and walk in when you want to go pray anymore. So there's really not a whole lot of time where people go to church to pray per se anymore. So I don't know, maybe I get some grace in there on both ends.
Yeah.
But what do you think about the before Mass?
What's that?
Like before Mass starts and everyone starts coming in, and all of a sudden it's social hour instead of people preparing for Mass to pray.
Well, I think that's why most churches are built to have room for socializing. Because again, the community is gathering. There's spaces to visit, and there's spaces to center and to enter into what we're about to do together.
No.
And so the narthex, the foyer, the greeting hall, whatever you call it, that's a space to visit. And it's right that we do that. We're supposed to check in on each other and how you guys doing, maybe people that you only see on Sunday, or, that's where you do that. No. But when you go into church, and before Mass in particular, it goes back to what you're saying about preparation. I'm going to allow myself to just kind of quiet my mind, quiet my heart, quiet my body, so that I can get ready.
No.
I'm not just running in here. I'm not mindlessly coming in. I'm quieting myself in order to enter into the worship experience. So yeah, I don't like seeing visiting happening in the church body.
No.
And even after Mass, I don't like to see visiting happening right away.
Especially because we have such a nice narthex. Like, there's couches, there's coffee and donuts. Like, it's a huge space. It's a space that's meant for that. It's like, I'm not going to be a Pharisee about it, but
No,
but it's not a preferred place for people to sit there and talk, because especially if there's someone there praying, especially if you see someone there still praying, it's like, okay, let's walk over to it. It's big. Let's walk way over here.
I can't help. I'll get like a split second thought. Like if I'm, because I like saying a prayer of thanksgiving after Mass. I do the anima after communion, and then I'll do a prayer of thanksgiving after Mass. With the kids, that happens. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But if you're in a moment of prayer, somebody will come actually nudge you.
Especially after communion.
It's like, okay.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's just.
It's kind of like personal. Like
I don't do that to other people, because
if I just received Jesus, like, it's pretty personal right now.
Yeah.
Like it's really personal to me.
I think of it as like they're in a moment of conversation with God.
I'm like in ecstasy right now.
I don't want to interject.
No offense. I'm like, I'm in ecstasy right now. Can you please just let me, like, I've been looking forward. Can I just get like 1 minute of like, especially like, a lot of time I'll put my hands on my face. So no one can see me either. Like I'll do that. Like no, there's not even gonna be an opportunity for you even to touch me, because I'm gonna be like, look like I'm a weirdo like this,
Yeah.
But it just helps me try to focus. And we have been a lot lately too, is they're doing a better job of being a little intentional after communion to have some silence. I think that's a big deal, at least for me, because we have those stages, prayer, meditation, and then like contemplation. Mm-hmm. You can't get to that spot of contemplation where it's just about you and God, where there's no talking. It's just me focusing on God. Like you need quiet for that. You need, if I'm going to try to get to that state, which usually I know right away because tears start rolling down my eyes. I'm like, every time, if I get to that point where God's trying to talk to me or something after communion, I'll be crying. I mean, that's like the tears of joy will come over me. It's like, that's what I'm longing for. That's part of what communion's about, is that intimacy, that relationship that you're entering into can't get closer than that.
We should think about, make a note of this. We should think about, talk to the worship team, bringing down the lights after communion and bringing the lights up on the tabernacle, because Jesus goes, he's placed back in the tabernacle. He's reposed into the tabernacle.
We just add a cue for that. Just program it in.
Yeah.
We have to talk.
And it doesn't have to be that long, but we do take that moment of pause.
But even if it's music too, just no words in the music. More of like, even if it's a beautiful instrumental.
Well, most of the time the post-communal hymn is just the song,
just
right?
The song,
it's not something that you're expected to sing along with.
Yeah.
But even to change the room, so you're not looking around, right? Your focus is directed towards our Lord in the tabernacle. Yeah. That could be something powerful.
Yeah, I think it's, well, for me, I mean, because it's hard. I mean, we're visual creatures for the most part. So for me, I have to, a lot of it, I think the lights going down does help during consecration and that kind of stuff. It does help you focus. But for me, most of the time, I'm closing my eyes. Doesn't mean I'm not paying attention or I'm sleeping or I'm napping, but I'm somewhere else. I'm not looking at what so-and-so's wearing or how they're doing. It just helps me focus, especially when we move from the liturgy of the word to the liturgy of the Eucharist, and with the shift of the light, I'm just trying to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'm trying to go to the upper room and to Calvary, to the grave. I'm trying to go there. And that's part of the preparation and the part of what I'm anticipating is going to happen, and what I'm bringing to this relationship is that it's supposed to be the source and the summit of my week. It's like, well, what am I doing to prepare for that?
Mm-hmm.
It's like most of my life, I didn't do anything to prepare for it. It's just like, you can't go to the Super Bowl and not have any kind of game plan of how you're going to execute or how you're going to get the most out of whatever thing. And if you want to get something out of Mass, bring something there. Bring your plans, bring your life, bring your hopes, your dreams, your disappointments. Bring the week. Bring all the stuff that didn't go right. Bring all the things that went well. Bring all your worries. Bring all the stress. That's what God wants. He wants you to bring
the beauty of
those.
the Mass, to end on a high note,
Yeah.
The beauty of the Mass is there's moments in the Mass where those offerings we're meant to give up those offerings. We're meant to make those offerings. Yeah. When the basket goes by, it's not just an offering of our financial contribution. No. It's an act of worship. I'm giving of the gifts that I've been given. When the gifts are presented at the altar, that is a moment for us to also spiritually offer gifts spiritual offer, our hopes, our desires, our concerns, our worries. We place all those things at that moment. That's a trigger for us to place all those things at the foot of the altar. It is right that we do that. We unburden ourselves before our Lord. And then the priest himself, he invites us during the Eucharistic prayers. He offers up this sacrifice, which we unite ours to, right? It's not just his prayer, it's our prayer that he lifts up. That's why he stands there with his...
Our prayer and your prayer.
Yeah. With his hands open, receiving our prayers and then directing them to the Father. And so the Mass, in a certain sense, would be incomplete if we didn't come prepared, knowing what we wanted to offer up and to sacrifice and to place at the altar at that moment.
Especially, he doesn't say my prayer. He says our prayer.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we always pray. Our Father. It's not my Father. It's a communal prayer. It's like, no, the Trinity.
So hopefully, like as a word of encouragement, come to Mass intentionally with, these are the things that are on my heart. These are the joys that I have. These are the sorrows that I have. Jesus, I want to lay them at your feet, at your altar. I place them here before you. I entrust them to the priest who speaks in your person, who lifts them up to God our Father, who hears all these things. You will leave Mass changed. If you're able to do that, the situation might not be different. You might still be in the midst of something that's difficult, but you'll have a renewed strength. Your heart will be not hardened, your heart will be shorn up, right? With a strength and a grace that is unexplainable. So to go back, like doing difficult things, taking the cold shower, it gives you the strength to face more difficult things, more stressful things that come up. The more you do that, the more you place yourself before our Lord at the foot of his altar, the more transformed you become. That's what St. Paul's saying is, we're putting on this armor of God, and that's one way you do that. The more you offer your sacrifices, the more God fills you up with grace. The more you detach, the more he fills you up with himself.
I think the other thing, too, that we were talking a little bit about, what the things that Mass that shouldn't happen are junky homilies, like the ones that are just like mailed in.
I saw my buddy was at a Mass.
Some there's like, we're blessed to have two great preachers.
So this priest gets up, he pulls his wallet out, pulls out a dollar bill, he reads it, "In God we trust. Do you?" Puts it away and sits down.
That took a lot of effort.
Yeah, exactly.
Slow clap, walk it back.
Slow clap. Yeah, thanks, Father.
Great. You know, it's one of those things where it seems like it's another thing about preparation and intentionality. Yeah, I can go up there and I could probably give a homily for. I mean, we're here with no script. We could talk for an hour and 45 minutes. I'm sure just about any reading we could just get up there and wing it and talk about God, which is great. But when you actually put time and effort, when I heard that like Rick Warren from Saddleback, he spends like anywhere between like 8 and like 20 hours a week on his message, it shows me that someone cares, that they're intentional, that like the people that are going to give up their Sunday and their money, their finance, that somebody's took a lot of prayer and time and effort to craft something that's they're really trying to help through prayer and God speaking through them to talk to us. I mean, that's, you know, in the Catholic faith, it's a lot of times it's just like thrown together. It feels like it's very rarely you see someone pull up who has it like written out or like prepared. I mean, how often is that really? I mean, like I said, we're in a different situation.
I'd say a couple of things there. I mean, our priests are spread so thin that they don't have the luxury of
8 to 20 hours
setting that time aside because they're doing everything. I mean, in some parishes, they're the maintenance guy, they're the DRE, they're the receptionist, they're everything. And they've got 2 other parishes down the road, right? So it's like they're spread so thin they can't spend the time on it. Sometimes it's like Father just doesn't have the gift of public speaking. You got to acknowledge that. Yeah. Public speaking, it's
also charism.
It's a charism, right? It's something you could develop, but just some guys don't have it. And you got to acknowledge that, right? It's just not something that they've got. You know, you think about what it takes to produce a 30-minute sitcom. I mean, those are highly trained, well-compensated professionals, dozens of them in a room. They're storyboarding ideas. They're this, they're that, to put together a 30-minute engaging piece of entertainment. Yeah. We figure Father's got to do this every week.
Oh.
Like
it's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot to ask.
But
doesn't mean you don't try. Doesn't mean you don't set aside the time. You don't put in the effort.
That's it. I think there, and we've read the books, and St. John's been working on these things for a long time. But that's what this divine renovation of why St. John's doing the things, because they're trying to have people who help work for the parish or PAs, pastoral associates, where we can free up the priests to do the things that they need to do primarily, which are the sacraments, visiting the sick and the dying, to have great messages, to be Jesus to other people, where they shouldn't have to be worrying about the boilers and insurance and these things, which is reality, which we know that. But I think you don't have to be a great public speaker to be able to prepare. Father Mike didn't start off being a great homilist. Like, I've been listening to his homilies for like 12 years. They've gotten so much better because he's been putting in the work. That's just like anything. You may not be good at prayer because you didn't put any time or effort in. To be better than 95% of the world in anything, it takes 100 hours. To be an expert takes 10,000 hours. There's somewhere in between 100 and 10,000 hours that should be the standard for some of those things.
Yeah, and this is what I'll say to that. Grace builds on nature.
Yeah.
Right? And so you put in the work, you will get better.
Yeah.
But what has to happen on a leadership level is Father's got to free himself up in order to devote the time to grow in the skill that is public speaking,
or to be collaboration, or be, if you're pulled too much in these other directions, then what we did at our old parish, we had a homily team. We had people help work with, hey, especially, but that takes humility. A lot of people don't like to admit, okay, well, I'm not good at preaching. Well, you're a preacher and you're not good at preaching. That's kind of hard to admit.
One of the pastors that I was with at a parish, he would start his parish council as like weekly meeting with his parish staff with a reflection on that next Sunday's gospel. So they would do the readings and they would each kind of like Bible study, Lectio, this is what I heard, this is what I heard, this is what, and he was able to collect that as sources of inspiration when he was preparing that homily. Yeah. Oh yeah, this stood out. I can make this work. So there's techniques that you can implement.
There's all kinds of resources now. Like before, you had to make it up yourself. But
there's so much content.
There's so much content and stuff like that. Like I said, but it's more of what's important. Do you think it's that important or not for the people who are sitting in the church to hear maybe the only positive message about Jesus? Yeah, the readings are pulled out. They're out of context. They're not reading the whole gospel. It's like you get a snippet. You're getting these 3 separate readings, which are geniusly put there, but haven't been explained why this first reading's here, why the Psalm's here. Like it's genius of why the lectionary puts those readings in there. And very rarely do we ever get the reason why. I'm kind of like a nerd like that. Like I like the unpacking of like how they're connected and things like that. I'm not even asking for that. I'm just offering like basic like speech 101. Like you don't have to be like telling jokes. You don't have to do those things, but just enough where you put forth, like even if you read it.
Yeah, I will say this though. Talk to some gifted preachers, Catholic priests.
It's still hard, I'm sure.
No, yeah, more often than not, they'll complain about the way that the missal's set up, the lectionary.
Really?
Yeah, how the readings. It's very difficult sometimes. Because you sit with them, I sit with them. Sometimes they just don't align at all.
Yeah.
Or they're not relevant to the season that we're in.
Yeah.
Does that mean you ignore them? I'm not going to go that. I'm not going to go that.
But a lot of times,
but there's always something that you can unpack because it's still God's word, right?
Well, like I said, like get yourself a resource. There's like the one I read is one. There's tons of those where they help make those connections for you. Yeah. There's tons like My Daily Bread, or like I said, I'm doing this Food for a Soul. Or if you need help to do that, then it's part of being humble to know. Like every priest is going to have something that they're good at or not good at. Their strengths and their weaknesses. Maybe he's better at administration. Maybe he's more of an intercessor. Maybe he's more pastoral, or he's better speak. Everyone's going to trade off. But I'd rather be, a jack of all the trades, at least to know, just to be, somewhat serviceable enough where people aren't leaving the parish because they don't feel like they're getting any kind of,
One of the cool things I like about Spotify, and you can do this on YouTube through comments, we can put questions to the episode. So with this episode, we'll put a question on there. How do you prepare for Mass?
Okay.
Because I like to hear, I'm always wanting to learn something new.
And there's no right answer.
No, that's the thing.
But are you doing anything? That'd
be a good question. Are you doing anything and what are you doing? Because I'd like to learn. I mean, if people are listening, watching this, which they are,
and that goes into our relationships. I know my wife and I, we've had these conversations, and you have all these ideas and things you should do. Like for me and her, it's like, okay, we were doing these meetings, like for a marriage, like we should do like a weekly meeting and do check-ins and budget and kids.
How long does that last?
Lasts a couple weeks. But we still do like our podcast. So then we'll do check-ins like for that, like kind of more informally, but it's the same principle. It's like, well, do I want to have great communication with my wife? Okay. Yeah. Well, then I have to be intentional about it. Okay. We're gonna sit down, no phones. We're gonna sit down. We're gonna talk about, okay, what's going on this week? We do like mini meetings now. It's like we have all the food for the week, like all of our meals. She has all the meals planned out, all in the fridge. This is what we're going to eat, and we have a calendar of all the stuff that's going on. But I'm like, okay, well, what about where's the date for us, like me and you, to whatever date night or sit down or so, hey, when are we going to do the podcast? That's usually what I'm angling towards, but that's same with any relationship, whether that's God, your family, your job, your own self.
When are you making the time?
When you make the time, when are you going to be intentional about setting the goal? Well, what's the goal? Do you want to get to heaven? Yeah. Do you want to be a saint? Do you want to work on being the best version of yourself? I mean, ultimately, that's what it should be working towards.
Speaking of time, so we're recording this. We're going to release this week. We're doing a Christmas episode next week. So we're talking about time. We're talking about Christmas, or we're talking about Mass. Come Christmas, let's clarify this for people. If you're Catholic,
yes,
then the fourth Sunday of Advent.
Oh yeah.
Is also Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
What does that mean? And we put out a video on our social media with Catherine, who's our
you got to go twice, and you got to go twice on Sunday.
Member. So you have to go you got to go twice,
Saturday or
you have to go for Sunday, and then you have to go for Christmas.
So you could.
There's a couple ways, Saturday, but know that as you're planning for that weekend, I'm going to Mass twice.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? You're just getting a bunch of Jesus. You're getting more Jesus, and
can never go bad.
You can't go wrong with that. So you can go, if you're at SJE, then and you find a parish near you that, look up their Mass times, look at your parish's Mass times. You go to the Saturday Vigil, and then any of the Sunday evening, which Christmas Masses, or Monday morning, or any of the Sunday Masses can count for Sunday, but then you have to go again for Christmas, or you can go on Christmas Day. So there's a lot of options, right?
Which is nice. That's the best part about the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Just like you pull up masstimes.org. It's like you can find that's a beautiful thing. It's like on Sundays, if we're traveling out of town, it's like, okay, well, I pull it up like, okay, we missed in the morning but there's a 4 o'clock, a 5 p.m., a 7 p.m. There's all kinds of different options where you can try to make it work. And you got to plan it out. You got to be intentional.
Great. Want to wrap us up in a prayer?
Yeah. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Come, Holy Spirit. Lord, we thank you for this time together. We ask you to bless all those who are watching and listening. Help them to be filled with your Spirit. We ask for an increase in the way that we approach things that are important, our relationships with our family and our friends and coworkers, but most importantly, how we approach you, Lord. We pray for the grace to long to want to come prepared so that we can give our whole lives to you. We ask this through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. All right. Thanks a lot.
God bless.